So in the coming weeks, I will guide us through the 14 precepts, a few at a time. And today we will cover the first 3. And I invite us to consider these precepts as a way to lift humanity out of long entrenched patterns of conflict and war. And I offer them with the prayer that as we come to embody what lies within these precepts, we may draw the seeds for thriving life into full bloom. The first precept: do not be idolatrous about or bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist ones. Buddhist systems of thought are guiding means. They are not absolute truth. Thich Nhat Hanh invites us to hear this first precept as the lion's roar, as the compassionate voice of the Buddha calling to us. And coming to understand this precept is important because it includes all the other precepts within it. The Buddha regarded his own teachings as a raft to cross the river and not as the absolute truth to be worshipped or clung to. This precept is aimed to prevent dogmatism and fanaticism from taking root. Ideological inflexibility is responsible for much, if not all, of the conflict and violence in the world. Buddhism urges us to transcend even our own knowledge if we wish to advance on the path of awakening. Knowledge itself can be an obstacle to true understanding, and rigid views become barriers to insight, which prevent us from arriving at deep and more profound understanding of reality. The first precept of the Order of Interbeing dissolves barriers, allowing us to embody total openness and tolerance. If we refuse to walk through the gates of openness and tolerance, we will be imprisoned by our own views and unable to realize the way. Fanaticism and narrowness are enemies of the Dharma, as they cause the destruction of life and the destruction of moral values. A fanatical mind can cause the killing of not just one, but of millions of human beings. And the Vietnam War was an example of these negative forces at play. And the Order of Interbeing was born during that situation of utmost suffering, like a lotus flower arising from a sea of fire. When people follow the guidance of the first precept, all weapons become useless. The Buddha said that when we are attached to views, even if the truth comes to knock on our house and even if truth comes to our house and knocks on the door, we will refuse to let it in. And just as various kinds of medicine are needed to treat a variety of diseases, many Dharma doors are necessary to free people caught in different circumstances. The teachings and practices vary, but they all are aimed at liberating the mind. Service to others, to earth, requires that we have a creative heart-mind. We must be able to see how different groups of people suffer and create Dharma doors which will allow them to awaken into mindfulness. And if you haven't yet, I suggest that you look on the mandala and listen to Krista Tibbett's honoring of Thich Nhat Hanh, which Rasul posted on there. It was quite a powerful example of this. And as soon as I heard Sherry Maple, who is a gun-carrying policewoman, start to tell her story of how she was received into the Order of Interbeing by Thich Nhat Hanh and Sister Chan Kong, I just burst into tears. I don't know, it just hit something so deep inside of me. And it was such an example of this precept of how Thich Nhat Hanh really looked at who each person was. And so it's really beautiful. So in this section, Thich Nhat Hanh says, openness and non-attachment from views should be our guiding principles for all endeavors towards reconciliation and peace. Openness and non-attachment are the doors leading into the world of ultimate reality and absolute freedom. And he ends the little write-up on the first precept by saying, the water of the four oceans has only one taste, the taste of emancipation. The second precept, truth is found in life. Do not think the knowledge you presently possess is changeless, absolute truth. Avoid being narrow-minded and bound to present views. Learn and practice non-attachment from views in order to open and to receive others' viewpoints. Truth is found in life and not merely in conceptual knowledge. Be ready to learn throughout your entire life and to observe reality in yourself and in the world at all times. And the second precept expands on the first. While knowledge is necessary to think in ways which help us in our daily life, it is not the highest truth. Thich Nhat Hanh says the way to practice finding truth in life is through observing reality in ourselves and in the world at all times. We need to practice continual observation of what is going on in our body, in our feelings, our mind, and in the objects of our mind, which is the world. The practice of mindfulness helps us develop concentration and insight so that we can see reality as it is. And we're coming back to this piece that was a theme throughout The Other Shore. Buddhism teaches us to look at things in their nature of interbeing and dependent co-arising. The mind that sees things in their interbeing, dependent, co-arising nature is called the mind of non-discriminative understanding. This mind transcends all views. And Zen Buddhism describes this state of insight as the road of speech has been blocked, the path of the mind has been cut. Oops, sorry. The third precept, do not force others, including children, by any means whatsoever to adopt your view, whether by authority, threat, money, propaganda, and even education. However, through compassionate dialogue, help others renounce fanaticism and narrowness. This third precept deals with the issue of freedom of thought, and therefore with our mind. Many parents and teachers break this precept without even being aware of it. Respecting other people's viewpoints is a hallmark feature of Buddhism. The Buddha said, "It is fine to have doubt. Do not believe in something just because people think highly of it, or because it has come from tradition, or because it is found in scripture. Consider whether what you hear goes against your judgment, whether it could cause harm, whether it is condemned by wise people, and above all, whether when it is put into practice, it could bring about destruction and pain." And it goes on to say that you can accept and put into practice anything that you judge as beautiful, accords with your judgment, is appreciated by wise people, and when put into practice brings joy and happiness. The attitude of openness and non-attachment from views creates respect and freedom for others. And freedom is one of the most basic rights of human beings, the right of all human beings, and not just some. To be able to respect others' freedom, we need to free ourselves from attachment and fanaticism and help others to do the same. It is through compassionate dialogue that we are able to assist others. Compassionate dialogue is the essence of nonviolent action, ahimsa. Ahimsa begins with the energy of tolerance and loving kindness. It is expressed in gentle, compassionate, intelligent speech that can move people's hearts. And then he goes on to say, it then moves into the field of action to create moral and social pressure for people to change. So he concludes this part by saying, actions motivated by anger or hatred cannot be described as nonviolent. And then he ends this section on the second precept by talking about, he says, as parents, we must respect freedom of thought in our children, even if they are still very young. This will allow us to learn from our children. Each human being is unique in his character or her character, capacities, and preferences. Capacities and preferences. We should try to be open in order to see and understand our children and refrain from merely imposing our predispositions onto them. He says, although blossoms also belong to the tree, they are not the same as the roots, leaves, and twigs. We should allow blossoms to be blossoms, leaves to be leaves, and twigs to be twigs, so that each can realize its highest capacity for development.